Warning! The Stone Age Gamer podcast includes a lot of bad language. Cover your motherfucking ears.
Good evening and welcome to the Stone Age Gamer podcast. I'm Kris Randazzo and joining me tonight is consistently hateful bird, Dan Ryan.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, you know what? You're going to play the game, you're going to get hit by hateful birds. The Alphabet Super Series has returned. Dan's pick for the letter N was Ninja Gaiden for Sega Master System. How does it stack up to its far more popular NES counterpart? Get ready to murder a sumo wrestler in cold blood because the Stone Age Gamer podcast starts now. Hi, everyone. This is episode 524. It's the week of July 26th, 2024, and welcome. For anyone new here, this is the official podcast of StoneAgeGamer.com. Dan and I talk every week about what's happening in the world of video games from retro gamers' perspective, as well as whatever the heck else is going on in our lives. And speaking of which, Dan, what's new and exciting in the world of you?
I had a surgery today, so that was fun. I met with a doctor on Monday this week. This past Monday, and went in and just was kind of talking to him. He was a ear, nose, and throat specialist, and it was like, all right, so here's where we're at. We've done all the steps. We got up to the fine needle aspirate for the biopsy. That didn't work. So what we need to do now is we need to get these lymph nodes out of my neck, and you need to get them over to a lab so we can figure out exactly what we got going on here. Is it lymphoma? What type of lymphoma? Like something else? Whatever. And the doctor was like, all right, how long has this been going on? And whatever, and we're talking to him. And he's like, all right, I'm going to try to get you in for this Friday. I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but, I might have a window on Friday that I can squeeze you into. So, okay, fine. Whatever. So got the call, go ahead, biopsy, excisional cervical biopsy, which sounds very fancy. Basically just means they cut some shit out of my neck. So he was like, you come in, you'll do that on Friday. Procedure is scheduled for 2:00 in the afternoon. We'll need you at the hospital by 12, and you can't have anything to eat after midnight the night before. I was like, okay, so I can't eat until I leave the hospital on Friday, like from Thursday at 11:59 at night until, whenever I leave the hospital. And they were like, yeah, you can have clear liquids up until then. They were like, clear liquids means you can have water, you can have juice with no pulp, Gatorade, black coffee. And I was like, does that include vodka? That's clear as well. And the lady was like, nobody has literally ever asked me that. And I was like, well, you have a boring ass job, because that seems like a pretty obvious joke to make. But she was like, no, you cannot have a bunch of vodka before you come in for a surgery. I was like, all right, I guess fine. So got to the hospital today at 12, eventually got back for the surgery at like 2:45 or whatever, because it's a hospital. It's a trauma center. Shit happens and whatever. But they took these lymph nodes out of my neck. And that's kind of the last step now, right? So, like, at this time next week, I should have the results. He said it'll take about a week for the results to come in. They might come in a couple days, we'll see. But by this time next week, there are no more steps. This is the final step to figure out exactly what is going on. And I have and it's weird, but when I was talking to him on Monday, he was like, we're already going to go ahead and schedule an appointment with oncology so that you can get your treatment started. That way, you get the results and you're in there and you have an appointment. So I should have the results by Friday of next week. And then I have my appointment with an oncologist to discuss treatment plan and all of that stuff on Wednesday the 1st. That is my appointment. So it's like, all right, it's been real this whole time, obviously. But it got real, today. of
Indeed.
like that. That's it. That's the last step. Now it goes on to, all right, what exactly is going on here? You know, is it lymphoma? And if it's lymphoma, is it Hodgkin's lymphoma? Is it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? Is it all of these different types of lymphoma? Is it leukemia? Is it something that is spread from somewhere else? Like what? I'll have answers relatively soon, which is weird to kind of like, looking forward to it is not the right way to put it, but there's no other way to put it, you know?
You're not hyped about it, but you're looking forward to the information.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man. So I started noticing the lymph nodes being swollen in my neck like towards the end of May. Like kind of that last week in May is when I really noticed it. And these last 2 months have been so mentally exhausting. Just beyond words of the sitting here knowing, right? Because going through all the steps with the different doctors, like they have to go through all the steps and like, okay, well, we got to do the CAT scan. All right. Or we have to do the ultrasound. Then we have to do the CAT scan. Then we have to do this. And we have like, I'm sitting here the whole time going, but I have cancer. I know that. Can we, and I still, there's still a chance, a very, very small chance that that's not what it is. But it is what it is. You know, we know that that's what it is. So knowing that I have had cancer for these like 2 months now, and not doing anything about it has been just mentally exhausting. And I'm looking forward to that part of it at least being over. Of like, okay, no matter what the doctor says, the treatment will start. We will start taking steps to correct this. You know, so it's weird. Like, it's weird to be sitting here recording a podcast a few short hours after I left the hospital having an excisional biopsy on my cancerous lymph nodes. That's kind of a weird day. You know, kind of a weird day. And my throat hurts a little bit because I was intubated.
Ooh.
You know, you go back and they have to put you to sleep. It's general anesthesia for it. So they put you to sleep. And when they put you to sleep, they put a breathing tube in there. And I'm a little scratchy. Yeah.
Well, that is a fairly decent segue into we had a little bit of listener related content I wanted to address that has come to my attention recently. So we got a review on Apple Podcasts pretty recently, actually, and I wanted to address it. So HB Kids, if you are listening to the show still, I really appreciate you sticking around. And I wanted to address your concerns that you wrote this Apple podcast review for. So on May 17th this year, HB Kids writes, "Meh. What used to be a pretty decent podcast is just a mail-in effort from Dan and Kris now. It feels like they stopped caring quite some time ago and do the podcast because it's something on their schedule." I wanted to address that because I think I understand where you're coming from. We have been struggling to make the podcast work within the rest of our lives. It's not that we don't want to do the podcast. At least I can talk to my own personal situation, and I feel like it goes for you too. We start recording so late, and we just get so tired that especially on episodes like the 10, 20, 30, 40, it just hasn't been working. But it's not for lack of us trying. Like, I look forward to doing this show every week. I love this podcast. I love doing it. I have no interest in stopping doing it. It's definitely not something I do just because it's on my schedule. Like, this is something I do because I want to do it. And we've been...
Yeah, no, that's way back in TWEP. Those you do.
Stop that.
Because they're just on your schedule. I get
Stop
it.
that.
That's fine.
It's just TWEP, not Waveback. I love that shit. That was a joke for you, Evan. No, we have been trying to figure this out. We feel that to some extent the product that we've been putting out has been a little bit more harrowing than we wanted it to be. So we've been working really hard to try and figure out how to make this work. We've been discussing recording on different nights. We have now started recording a little bit earlier on Fridays. So I think the last 2 weeks have gone much better than they have in a while as far as keeping up my energy. And I also have a new plan of attack for the 10, 20, 30, 40 to try to make it less just reading things off a list and more of a discussion. So hopefully next week we can actually get that sussed out. But HB kids, if you're sticking with us, I really do appreciate you sticking with us, and continue to let us know if anybody else is feeling like we're losing a step, or if you got any questions or concerns about the show. We love hearing from folks. We really do.
Well, yeah, for sure. And part of it is too, like, I do get that, again, I am sitting here literally hours after having surgery to record this podcast. But that being said, we've been doing this now. This is episode 523 that we're recording.
Indeed.
That's 10 years.
Yeah, I thought I'd written
of podcasting.
Down where our
like
10th anniversary show was.
I challenge most other podcasts to be like, here's your 10 years of content. They're not all going to be winners, man. It's fucking a decade of bullshit. Like I get it, I guess.
I mean, honestly, if he had been listening to a handful of the episodes, I'm thinking back to May, I'm thinking about like the 10, 20, 30, 40. That's around when we started really talking about like, crap, man, this is it's getting harder for me to do this actively. Oh shit, we're past our 10 years. It was April 28th was when our first episode went up. Boy, we sure shot the pooch on that one, didn't we?
Yeah, we really did.
I swear, I could have sworn I wrote that down so that I would remember it. And I think, I think I got screwed up because I was talking about the 10-year anniversary of Geekade itself, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, we've been at this for over a decade. Good for us.
That's a long fucking time, and I'm not making excuses.
No, and I also don't want to, absolutely no disrespect to HB Kids. Thank you for taking the time to leave the review. And if you're sticking with us, consider re-reviewing if we're doing any better, or just, if that's how you really feel, leave it, let it stand.
Yeah, it's fine too.
All.
That's fine too.
Now, we also got an email recently that I should have pulled up ahead of time, and I didn't. So now I have to find it. It was
This is the review I'm leaving. The unprofessionalism of the host.
Okay, so this is a bit of a long one, but I thought it was really cool to read. And I did send him an email back explaining just my first response, but that'll make sense in a minute. So this comes from Devin Cooley. You know a great thing about retro gaming podcasts, even if you start them when they're 10 years old, they're still relevant. I picked up this podcast, A, because the first random retro game podcast I was listening to, Retro Game Guys, simply ran out of episodes and stopped. Sad. But also, 2, thanks to the stars aligning, specifically one star and like the moon and the earth, I found Stone Age Gamer. Okay, I can explain. In April 2024, there was a total solar eclipse. Now, the previous August, my sister, her fiancé, and I took a 13-hour trip to Utah to see a partial solar eclipse. I was excited for that because of a different partial eclipse I saw in 2017, the 2017 being some 80% complete, the Utah trip having a 98% or something, leading up to the 2024 eclipse being 100%, sun being completely blotted out by the moon. We planned, went to Ohio, stayed with family friends, and it was great. Also, I decided to see if I could find any retro game stores in Ohio, since I was curious if the pickings were any better than Southern California. You know what I found? Like before we even flew out there, Stone Age Gamer. Neat. Wasn't too far away from where we were staying. We drove past the place on our way in even, right through Salem, Ohio. I went in like 3 times, bought a sealed copy of Centipede for Atari 2600, only worth $20, but Centipede is my mom's favorite game, so the idea of having a sealed box of it just makes me very happy. I think that's a very good purchase, sir.
Yeah.
Back to it. Long story longer, I spent a lot of time driving around Ohio, hitting up retro game stores. Stone Age Gamer and James's Games in Cleveland being by far my favorite, but also the good on the exchange for being a chain and not completely sucking, which was nice because I went to like 6 of them. After my Ohio trip, I just wanted more. I looked around for some podcasts or something and just picked Retro Game Guys first. That lasted like a month and a half. I'm unfamiliar with Retro Game Guys. Now I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, me too.
After that ran out, I did another search, and hey, I recognize that name, and have been listening to SAG and Waveback ever since. Currently, I'm in the 170s. December 2017, the final episode of the year, is next, and I wanted to just give a few random blurbs about my thoughts on recent topics, quote-unquote recent topics. This has been a very fun email for me to read, by the way. Mario Odyssey. Man, I literally just bought this game. Like, really last week. Target had a huge sale on some Switch titles. Like, $35 for Odyssey and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe each. Almost half the Nintendo titles sold. I kept having to turn the volume way down during Kris's spoilery bits. Haha. Monster Rancher. Perhaps not the first, but Monster Rancher 2 is one of my favorite games ever. The bit about being able to get monsters from your mom's CDs collection was great, yes. Unlocking the ability to raise new monsters was thrilling, and then combining them to make sweet combinations was just awesome. It really doesn't seem like a game either Kris or Dan would really enjoy, but hey, that's fine. The Switch. It's been both a lot of fun and a little heartbreaking to hear the speculation on the Switch, going from overly passionate about the Switch bombing, seriously introducing a bad game just means that the bad game won't sell, not that the console's life is tied to it. I get your perspective that if that's what you were expecting all Switch titles to be like, but dang, that was a heavy at first. But the overall acceptance and excitement for the console in general, once Kris had it, heck yeah.
I stand by everything we said.
I'm curious to hear Dan's take on it once it happens in the very next episodes. Metroid Prime 4. LOL, the announcement in 2017. Here I am listening in 2024 and just feeling sorry for you guys. That's all on that subject. And then we got a bit about Waveback stuff, which I'll address on Waveback. And then he says, okay, this has gone on a really long time. I'm not looking forward to the part where you guys have to deal with COVID, but seeing as the podcast is updating to this day, and Kris and Dan are still on the site, that keeps me hopeful for the future. Also, Kris and John just gave the intro to the 2017 SAG JGLD's 2-parter, which was hilarious and adorable. Gotta go listen to that. So, first things first, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? So I go back to the 2017 SAG JGLDs. I totally forgot. I did this intro with John in his cute little munchkin voice. Oh my God. It just melted my heart to hear him, little tiny John, talking again. I was like, oh, my dude. So that was wonderful. Goodness gracious me. So yeah, the Switch, that's fun. Yeah, I in particular was all kinds of wrong about that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we were, to be fair, we're fucking idiots. So,
look, I mean, I've been around the game industry, and so have you. I think I felt justified that the last thing they wanted to do with the Switch was come out of the gate with 1-2 Switch. If Zelda hadn't been the phenomenon that it was, 1-2 Switch would have done a lot more damage. I stand by that.
Yeah.
Because that was the exact kind of game that Nintendo needed to stop making at that point in time. Like, going back to it now, like having games like 1-2 Switch now amidst everything else that's going on the platform, wonderful. But that was like the epitome of their personality during the Wii U era that people were not connecting with. And the game was the butt of a lot of jokes, and with good reason. Its follow-up is reluctantly very enjoyable, but yeah, I stand by that. But the Switch is probably my favorite game system ever now, so
there was a lot of reason to be concerned.
There was, and I've got a lot of concerns going into Switch 2 because I with the exception of Game Boys, they've never had two successful home consoles in a row.
I mean, well NES and Super Nintendo.
NES and Super NES. They've rarely had it, right?
was successful, and GameCube was successful.
They were, but they weren't, right? Like Super NES and NES, I get that. N64 was trounced by PlayStation. Just utterly beat to shit by PlayStation. GameCube, especially in North America, distant third to Xbox and PlayStation 2. Then Wii was very successful to an extent, but then Wii U was not. DS was crazy successful. 3DS started off as a dumpster fire. It became very successful, but that was after some serious, water bucket bailing. So I got my concerns. We'll see. But thank you very much for the email. And in 5 years, when you catch up on these on the episodes you're listening to, if you're still with us, I think it'll be really fun for you to hear this.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that we have this decade-long run of shows to be able to, go back and for people to dig through and whatever, because we are very different people than we were back then. And so much of that early stuff was us trying to figure out what the show was, who it was going to be, who we were as podcasters and whatever. And then eventually it just got to a point where I think you and I both were like, fuck it. We're just not, we're not doing
I had
podcaster voice. Hey everybody, well, welcome to the Stone Age Gamer. We don't do any of that shit,
I had a very specific goal for the show. Is that I wanted it to be Radio Free Nintendo. That's all I wanted, was to have what they had, and I tried really hard to make this that. And after several years of trying to make this that, and also that sort of started to rub up against what my actual own voice was. And I think that once we kind of landed on narrowing it down to it just being the two of us, that's where the show really found its groove properly. As much as I do occasionally miss the larger cast, but that was a podcast made by people that were 10 years younger than us.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a fair point. And while we're still very similar people, right? You at 33 and 43 is not a super different guy. You're still wearing, or have at the very least, and would wear those terrible Dragon Ball Z shirts that I would have to smack you for.
I would absolutely wear those if they still fit.
I know you would. I very much know that you would. It's when I say that we're very different people. We're very different people insofar as what the show is, and what we bring to the show, and versus what we tried to bring to the show or thought the show should be. We're talking the difference in a podcast that's been going for 10 years versus a podcast that at that point had been going for 2.5 years. 2.5 years is nothing. That's right. That's easy. Anybody have a podcast for 2.5 years. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I wonder what the show will be like on the 20th anniversary. God willing and the creek don't rise. That the meteor hasn't struck, or the ice age hasn't happened, or whatever the fuck hasn't happened by then. I'm sure we'll still be worrying about the same, Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. I don't know, what's the Switch 3 gonna look like?
They're never going to not Nintendo. That's their whole thing.
You control it with your balls. That's weird. Seems like you're cutting off half of your market, but that's fine. It's whatever. It's okay. Yeah. If anybody else has any comments or critiques or criticism, keep them to your fucking self. I want to hear it.
I do. I desperately want to hear it. I love all of it. Sign me up.
What's going on? What's going on in your world, Kris?
Well, right now, I'm
Did you have a surgery today?
No.
Anything? Okay.
No surgeries for me, but I am trying to log into to Gambler for my weekly debauchery, as it were, and I can't log into one of the apps because of the whole outage thing that happened today, the Microsoft outage.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a bit more in week-old news, probably, but I'm going to restart my tablet and my phone and see if that helps. Because I can log into one of them on both on my desktop and my one tablet, but the other app I can't log into at all. I can open it up, but I can't log into it. Which, puts a damper on my ability to be able to, use it, as it were.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't have any surgeries today. I did get to go outside and do some yard work this afternoon. I've been working super hard this week to stay on schedule for the next Mario video, which is done. I did it. I finished it on time without going nuts and having to stay up and work late or anything. I just did my business, and it turned out to work out on time. So that's great. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It was another one that turned out to be much more challenging than I originally anticipated, because I went down this rabbit hole of I wanted to cover spin-offs. And then that turned into a whole thing oh crap, well, if I'm going to cover this one, I got to cover this one. Well, what if I covered all of them? And covering all the Mario spin-offs is insane. Which was very specifically not what I meant to do with these Mario videos. I wanted to not cover everything ever, just the mainline Mario Brothers series game. That was the goal. So I found a good way of kind of reining that back in and just not really talking about stuff like Mario Kart or anything like that. Just, I mentioned Wario Land because that's Super Mario Land 3. So that fits in. And then instead of talking about every other Wario game, I just mentioned that, and this spawned the Wario Land series, which also then spawned the WarioWare series. And then I covered Donkey Kong 94 because Donkey Kong 94 was a pretty important piece of Mario game, and it also introduced a lot of mechanics that became regular Mario mechanics, like his triple jump and his backflip. Those were key features in Mario 64, but they were introduced in Donkey Kong 94. Very important game. So that was well worth mentioning, and then also how that revitalized the Donkey Kong brand, and then how that led to Donkey Kong Country and the Super Nintendo. That was the catalyst of the Super Nintendo winning the 16-bit console war against Genesis. So you kind of need to mention Donkey Kong Country in that respect, especially when heading towards Yoshi's Island, which is also technically a Mario game, but it's actually the first Yoshi game. But that's going to be in the next episode. I covered the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I covered Hotel Mario and Mario All-Stars, and it's an interesting video. I'm happy with the way it came out. That was my week as far as work is concerned. Did you play any games other than Ninja Gaiden this week? Because I have a bunch of games to talk about.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it briefly last week, but I decided to play through the 2D Metroids in order because they had recently added them to the Nintendo Switch Online, and I just fucking adore those games so much. I love Fusion, I love Zero Mission, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna play through these, and I'm up to Dread. So I've been playing Dread for most
you
of
never
this
finished
week.
that, did you?
No, I never did, and I don't really have a good reason why I never finished it. I just didn't, life kind of got in the way and whatever. So I did decide on my playthrough to play AM2R instead of Samus Returns.
So you mentioned, yes.
And really, I did that because I feel like it fits better playing it the timeline order that way. I feel like playing AM2R fits better in the natural progression of things, even though there are certainly abilities in AM2R that you don't have in Super Metroid and whatever, or even Fusion.
But it mechanically feels a lot more like Fusion and Zero Mission than like Samus Returns is like Proto Dread. It's still Metroid,
really
but
is.
it's modern. That's where modern Metroid kicks off.
Yeah. It just didn't feel like the right game to play in this. And I might go back and play through it once I finish Dread, because Samus Returns is great. But the other problem with Samus Returns is that I'm very much like you at this point of I don't want to play this on the 3DS. I just don't.
Especially after having played Dread and like, oh, so this is what it feels like to play this game with a controller with enough buttons on it. Like,
yeah, you know, like there's definitely some limitations, and that is a game that is just screaming for a port to home consoles. It would just be so wonderful to have that happen. But the other reason, you know, of playing through AM2R is because it's just so fucking impressive. Still
to
so this day, having played through it, you know, before and going back to it, man, what a fucking accomplishment. It really just blows my mind every time I play through it that I've played a lot of fan games, you know, over the years and whatever. That is not a fan game. That game, it would not be weird for Nintendo to license that and officially release it as a Metroid game. It's that fucking good. It's that good.
Well, the only thing that would be weird about it was that that Samus Returns exists. But other than that, quality-wise, I get it. I'm just making a bad joke.
Quality-wise, like it's fucking astonishing what that game is able to accomplish. And what's interesting is as I'm playing through them, I think, I'm pretty sure that when we did our ranking of all the Metroid games, that Super Metroid took the number one spot, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I would sit there anymore after playing through them back to back to back like that. I don't know that I would. Because Super Metroid's great. But I don't know. I might feel like right now I want to say like I might put AM2R above it, you know, which is fucking crazy to say and whatever. But
I definitely wouldn't. And don't get me wrong, I love AM2R. I really do. I do think AM2R it's great. It really is. But Super Metroid has the mother brain fight. You know, the Super Metroid has the environments that look the way that they do, like the Brinstar Depths with the vines and then the snowish looking stuff.
Shit. You know, yeah. I'm not saying I definitely would. I'm not saying
I understand the want to. I understand that AM2R is that goddamn good.
I was more looking at it. I was more looking at it from a like not playing through these from a nostalgic perspective, you know, because like before the times that I've played through Super Metroid, it's been like I want to play through Super Metroid, and I just go and I play through Super Metroid. Playing them all together as like a package takes away some of the nostalgia of it, and then starting to kind of judge the games on their own. I don't know, it's such a fascinating series, and I love it so goddamn much. I really, really do. And playing through Fusion,
did that last year, I think. I did my Metroid playthrough, and yeah, I mean, I did Samus Returns instead of AM2R, but I felt by the time I was done, like there's something about the atmosphere of Super Metroid that I just think has yet to be topped. There's everything, the way that the sound design comes together in that game is so remarkable, especially considering its limitations. And there's an atmosphere, and there's also just something very specifically magical about Samus versus Mother Brain and on planet Zebes. Like, that's the quintessential thing, and I don't think SR388, just the general premise of Metroid 2, I don't think compares to the general premise of Super Metroid, just for me personally. Which is why I think that Super Metroid intrinsically comes out on top. And not because of anything mechanical or with AM2R, just that the game that AM2R is based on is so very limited. And the fact that they took that game and expanded on it in such a brilliant way, I think is just unfathomably commendable. And the question of whether AM2R is better than Samus Returns, I think, is definitely a conversation, because Samus Returns, while I also think is freaking phenomenal, is really, really held back by the platform it's on. Mm-hmm. And I think there are things in AM2R that they did a lot better, like especially the contact that you had with the team that went there before you, like later in the game. Like that stuff was all very interesting. The water system, right? Because in Metroid 2 had these pipes going all over the place, and they really expanded on that and made it into a mechanical thing. Like, here's a chunk of this planet, and this is why these pipes are here. This is
the
why this stuff works.
System.
Exactly. I thought it was very, very clever the way that they took what Metroid 2 established and expanded on it in that direction. But that's not to take away from what Mercury Steam did with Samus Returns, which also breathed an incredible life into Metroid 2. That surprise Ridley fight at the end is fucking amazing.
It's cool.
Just that tying it into both Prime and Super Metroid, I thought was just brilliant. The way those fights worked, I love the idea of the parry system that I think is really pulled off much better in Dread. There's so much good in both of those games, but for my money, nostalgia or no, go ahead.
I could do without the parry system. I get why it's there. I could do without it. It's not my favorite mechanic.
I like the notion of Samus being a more physical fighter. I like the notion of there being some degree of melee combat in the Metroid games, making the combat a bit more engaging than just the shooting, right? Because most of the time fighting enemies in Metroid is kind of a nuisance, and trying to add a layer of something to that, like, it's one of the things I think Other M did really well, or at least had a really good notion of, was with the the dodging and the parrying, and when you get things damaged, you can go up and do those really cool kill moves. Something for a 3D Metroid, incorporating that I think was really neat. But then going back to playing a Metroid game where there is really no physical aspect to Samus doing her thing, it feels kind of lesser. Like, I prefer it with, and I think that Dread did it right. I think Samus Returns had issues. It was a neat concept, but it wound up making you wait around for things a lot. You'd be running, and then you'd be like, all right, I have to stop and wait for this thing to attack so that it can counter it. Whereas in Dread, you kind of start that way, but then they streamline it to you get to the point where you don't have to stop with things. You're just kind of running and dashing and destroying everything before you even get the screw attack. Like, it kind of makes it they integrated it in a way that not long into the game makes it so much more fluid, and then when the whole game changes up its core premise, then obviously that that has its own unique design to it. So I don't know where you are in the game, so I don't want to talk too much more about that.
Where did I just get to? I just got I got the various suit, I got the bombs, and I think the grappling hook is the last thing that I just got. I think I've killed like 3 Emmys at this point.
Okay. All right.
Which are still the fucking scariest thing.
Oh, they're so
Jesus
cool.
Christ.
They're so cool. God, I love Dread.
They're
play
so
it
fucking
again.
scary. It's such a good game, and it's such an interesting evolution of the Metroid franchise, because even though this is technically Metroid 5, right? Dread is Metroid 5. It really feels like the first 4 are a very separate kind of thing, and Dread is starting something new. And I really do hope that we get more 2D Metroid in the future. I don't know that we're going to.
I think we will. Dread performed pretty well. It wasn't like the biggest blockbuster ever, but by Metroid standards, it performed pretty well. So I'd be surprised if we didn't get more 2D Metroid.
Because I am excited about Prime 4 as well, but I like the Prime games. I don't love the Prime games. You know what I mean? Just for me personally, I
love Prime 1. I like the rest of them. Like Prime 2, Prime 3, I think are very good games. But
yeah,
Prime
they're good.
Prime 1 is special. Prime 1's
great.
different. That game was lightning in a bottle. That was just an absolute magical game. And I don't think they were able to properly capture that in 2 and 3. In general, I'm more of a 2D gamer. Prime is one of those few 3D games that really works for me. I think Zelda works well in 3D. I think Metroid Prime in first person works well. I would really like to see them. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't ever so slightly disappointed that Metroid Prime 4 just looked like Metroid Prime, because I really want to see them take a stab at, God, not storyline wise, but a third-person 3D Metroid game, because there's so much potential in Other M. There's so much potential in Other M to have that kind of a game experience with Metroid. Just, do it well. Don't put it on a friggin' tiny spaceship and make it super linear. Do that right, and it could be really, 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 really cool.
It could. It really, really could.
And don't get me wrong, Prime 4 could be amazing. I really hope it's because 2 and 3 have really great moments. They have really cool things in them, but there's a magic that's in the first game that I think is missing from 2, 3, and Hunters, and obviously Federation Force.
Sure.
That I would love to see them be able to recapture.
Yeah, I mean, the way I feel about 3D action games. That is Sony's bread and butter. That is where I live most of the time.
How far have those come? How far have 3D character action games come? Can you imagine what they could do with Metroid now in a post God of War reboot world?
Yeah. I'm super excited about that possibility, and think it would ultimately. I know. This is we're bringing up old shit, but ultimately, I still think it works better. Prime did a really good job of translating Metroid into first person, but it's still missing part of it. There's still a part of controlling Samus in first person versus 2D that I think you could nicely bridge that gap between the two into a third person action adventure, Metroidvania style game. I'd be super, super into it.
Well, the problem with the Prime games is that so much of Metroid is jumping. So much of Metroid is jumping and flipping and climbing. And you can't do that in a first person game. And when you do, when Prime 2 reintroduced the gravity jump and the screw attack, those had to go into third person. And that was fine. But it also, you were kind of limited by within the level design, because you don't want to have to keep constantly switching back and forth between camera angles.
Right.
You're already doing a lot of that with the morph ball, and their integration of the morph ball in Prime is so brilliant. So brilliant. But then but that's was used for, morph balls getting into smaller spaces and going into these claustrophobic areas to solve puzzles and stuff. That was really cool. But for something as constant as the jumping in a Metroid game. You just can't really do that in 3D. You can't have that degree of verticality and have it still feel like Metroid, which is why a third-person game like Other M, that worked, kinda. that showed, that proved that it could work if it wasn't that game.
Yeah, it's man, it blows my mind as I play through the Metroid games, and as we're talking about Metroid now, it blows my mind that it is not more popular than it is. Because, like, we love Metroid, but it is not a huge seller.
No, it's enough of a seller.
Comparatively speaking.
It's a good seller, but it's not Mario and Zelda. And
which is wild to me. It's so wild to me that it's not.
Right? It's crazy. And I'm hoping
it's a little bit more than like I know we talk about it with such love and such reverence, and especially because of like Super Metroid and the moment that Super Metroid was and what it had and whatever. But like, it's marginally a better seller than like Kid Icarus. You know, like it's closer to Kid Icarus than it is to Mario. And that seems fucking nuts.
It is
to me.
Occasionally, like the first Prime did very, very well. But yeah, generally speaking, it hasn't caught on in that way. And I would love for the Metroid series to have its Breath of the Wild moment. And that's what I was kind of hoping, man. Prime 4 would be. I don't think it's going to be that. I think that's what Nintendo was hoping Other M was going to be. You know, that's obviously before Breath of the Wild, but they Other M.
Well, they shouldn't have let fucking Team Ninja do it.
Team Ninja wasn't the problem. It was Sakamoto was the problem.
They should have fucking...
The game Team Ninja made was pretty solid. The direction, like the actual game mechanics and all that jazz, that functioned. It was the direction, it was the story, it was Nintendo's insistence that the game have to be played with just a Wii remote. Like, Team Ninja wasn't the problem. As much as I'd love to say they weren't the problem.
I would fucking lose my shit. I would love, and it'll never happen, but give me the Naughty Dog version of Metroid. That's what I want. You know, and not necessarily saying that Naughty Dog has to make it, but I want that level of 3D action fucking whatever done to Metroid. Because then you do bring it up to par with Breath of the Wild and, you know, Mario Odyssey and or whatever Mario game you want to throw in there. You do bring it up to that echelon.
Well, here's hoping that someday that happens.
I just love it. I love Metroid.
Me too. With all my heart. One of my favorites.
Also, as an aside, I was thinking if I don't think I'm going to end up with a very big scar on my neck where these lymph nodes were removed. But I was like, you know, if I end up with a scar, maybe I'll get a little Metroid tattoo, like feeding off the scar. That'll be funny. Sucking the life out of me. But no, I don't think I'm going to end up with a big enough one. And neck tattoo is a bold statement regardless. I feel... I don't know if I'm a neck tattoo kind of guy, Chris.
Only if it's Kirby sucking on the...
Oh, well, that too.
Not a Metroid. You got to make it a big, adorable Kirby.
But yeah, so I'm hopefully going to finish up Dread within this week. And then we also, after we finished the Acolyte, we started falling back into Jedi, what is it? Survivor?
Yeah.
Not falling. Yeah, Jedi Survivor. Because I kind of fell off that game too. Because, man, and jumping back into that game, I immediately was met with the same fucking issues I had that made me put it down for a couple of months of like, man, I really, really want to love that game. I really do. I don't love it. There are so many things in those EA Star Wars games that are just so god damned frustrating.
They're not my cup of tea.
Man, it is so close to being exactly what I want from a 3D action adventure Star Wars game. Like, they're so fucking close. But then, you know, jump back in and trying to figure out the objective, and I pull up that map and I'm like, oh, the fuck is this map? This is useless garbage. I hate it. It's still a really good game, but it's not great. And I loved the Acolyte so much. I really, honestly, truly did. I thought it was great. I loved the finale of the show. I love what it sets up. I'm super into it. So Tiff and I were like, all right, let's jump back into, you know, this Jedi game, and we'll finish this. She's kind of hyped for Outlaws. She thinks that looks really, really cool. So that might be something we pick up here in the future. I don't know how I feel about it. I do like the idea of playing through a Star Wars game that's not focused on the Jedi, that, you know, is focused very specifically on the Han Solo-esque kind of side of things. That might be cool, but I also don't love Ubisoft games.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't really like Ubisoft's games, so I'm having a real hard time getting excited about that one. I don't think it looks like my bag. But yeah, most Star Wars games aren't my bag. I am such a Star Wars fiend, but most of the games just don't do it for me.
Most of the games have not been good. If we're being honest, I would argue that there are a handful of really good Star Wars games. There is a truckload of shit. And I don't know that there have been any great Star Wars games.
I think the original Rogue Squadron and Rogue Squadron 2 are great. I think X-Wing and TIE Fighter on PC are legitimately great.
I would put those as very good. I don't think I would go so far as to say great. I don't know that I would.
Granted, I haven't played them in a very long time, but I loved those games. Like, I put a ton of time into those. I think Star Wars Chess is very good.
But even like Knights of the Old Republic, like, that game is very good.
I hate that game.
It was great at the time because it was just so different and so new. And like, now that game is a chore to play through because game design has just come so far since then.
Like, I don't like the Super Star Wars games. I've tried to get into those games for ages. I just don't think they're very good.
The Super Nintendo ones?
Yeah, those were like super good. Highly regarded. I don't get it. I mean, I guess I think they're fascinating. They're so freaking weird. With the liberties they took with, like, and now I'm fighting the Sarlacc, I guess. It's because they're all over the map. But I've never really been able to get into those games.
But like that Jango Fett game sucked.
Bounty Hunter?
But, yeah.
It was not suck.
It was okay.
It did not suck. Obi-Wan on Xbox ain't great. Jedi Power Battles is fine. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace is meh.
Which is the beat 'em up one?
Jedi Power Battles.
Yeah, that one's okay. Fine. The Star Killer games were fine.
The first one was fine. The second one did not hold my attention. They were fine.
You know, like that. It's weird that for a property that massive, that huge, like that important to pop culture, it's weird that there is not like, yes, but at least there is X. You know, and you could say like Rogue Squadron or whatever, but there's not. I guess what I mean more is there's not a Jedi-focused game that is universally loved. That seems weird, you know, because like Dark Forces, like, it's a really good Doom clone, you know, it's good, but it is what it is. That's probably going to get me some shit.
I haven't tried it yet. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on it. just in case I hate it. But I do love Doom. I do love Star Wars.
But when it came out and it was like, it was very cool and all of that. But you know what I mean? Like, there's not like this universally loved Jedi-focused action game. And that seems really weird to me that has never, like, they've never cracked the code on that. The EA ones are close. They're really close. But they're just missing something.
Yeah, they're not quite there.
Yeah.
Not quite ripe yet.
Anyway, so we've been playing through that a little bit. And then I made my way up to Infinite this week in Snap. Just because I was being lazy last week and didn't do it in the first week of the season. So I did it in the second week of the season. And there's some interesting cards coming out this month. Like just of some weird characters. Because it's the focus of the month is obviously on Deadpool and Wolverine. So the season pass card was Gwenpool. The first week was Ajax. Fucking like just a D-list character. Copycat is the big one next week. Or actually, sorry, the first week was Hydra Bob. And that card fucking sucks. Ajax is interesting, but will get more interesting. There's a Cassandra Nova card coming out later in the month that should make Ajax work a lot better. The game's in a really interesting place right now. So I made my way up to Infinite through that this week so I can fuck around with the other shit. And then Puzzle and Dragons in North America had a collab with themselves because in Japan there's been 2 runs of a Gundam collab. You know, so all the Gundams, all the fucking pilots, everything has been so crazy. And the cards have been incredibly strong in the meta in Puzzle and Dragons. Like, it's basically been like, you know, we've gotten other cards in North America, but without having access to the Gundam cards, we're really struggling to keep pace with the power creep of the game because we get all the same dungeons and all that shit. But without these Gundam cards, it's been really, really difficult. And Gundam was just never coming to the States because of how expensive the license is. And that's happened a few times in Puzzle and Dragons. Like, North America never got the original Dragon Ball Z collab. Because it was just too expensive. The Marvel collab was too expensive to run in North America versus running in Japan. But with a couple of them, we've gotten reskins. So we had a Voltron reskin a while ago that didn't really go well. And then we had a Power Rangers reskin that was cool. Like, I really like having the Power Rangers cards, but it's never been buffed. It's never been updated. So with the Marvel collab, they reskinned it with Gung-Ho characters. And now with the Gundam collab, they've reskinned it with a different set of Gung-Ho characters. So playing through that this week has been like, oh yeah, they were right. These cards are like what we've been missing. It's like content that I've been struggling to clear in Puzzle and Dragons. Not that there's a ton at this point, but it's like, oh yeah, this is good. I'm glad we have it. This is excellent. And then as soon as they do that, they announce a new thing in Japan, and it's like, well, fuck. All right. That's way better. But I don't know. I'm not quitting.
Good. Stick with it.
That's right.
I believe in you.
Anyway, so I actually played video games this week, Chris.
Hooray. I like video games.
Yeah, they're okay. I like them when they're Metroid. What have you been playing?
I went through, John put on Mega Man X music the other day. And so
Nice.
I was like, well, I guess I'm playing this now. So I just sat down and I beat Mega Man X top to bottom. Oh, the Pirates just pulled ahead of the Phillies in the fucking 9th. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on. Now it's
Boo
8-7. You're really going to lose this in the 9th. You're really going to do this to me? Yeah. Final. That's it. It's over. Well, glad I wasn't watching that game. Let's see. What the hell else did I play? All right. I got... So, all right. Let's see. Where do I back that up? I got Rocket Knight Resparked in the mail.
Oh, yeah.
My physical copy of that finally showed up, and boy, let me tell you, I love Rocket Knight Adventures. That game is spectacular.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good.
The original Rocket Knight Adventures on Sega Genesis is top tier. It is really one of the best Genesis games, and playing that game with a rewind button has been such an eye-opener because I can learn it now. I can figure out like the spots that I haven't been able to get past or that I haven't been able to figure out how to get past well. I can take the time and figure them out now, which has been an absolute treat. I also thought I had almost beaten this game, and it turns out that I haven't quite almost beaten the game. I thought I got up to like, all right, I beat this guy, and then I fight the final boss, and it's over. And now that I have a rewind button, I was able to finally do that. I've never been able to beat the mech battle. You're doing the giant mech battle. I've always been able to get him down to what turned out to be the last hit. He gets really, really, really good at dodging right at the last hit. And I finally was able to do it with several shots on rewind. I finally got the hang of it. And then there was like more game after that. I was like, well, damn it. All right, let's keep going. And there are a lot of cheap shots. Like, there are definitely parts of that game that is based on, it's a classic Konami game. There's trial and error, up, down, left, and right in that game. But it's freaking masterful. It's such a good looking game. It was like the game that made me jealous of my friends with Sega Genesis. And I'm so happy that it's on Switch. And the sequels, I'm really looking forward to diving into, especially the Super Nintendo version, because they have cleaned up the massive amounts of slowdown that were in the Super Nintendo version. You can play with an enhanced version that removes most of the slowdown, which is great, and I cannot wait to try it. I tried it a little bit just to play through the first level, just to kind of get a feel for it, and was like, wow, this really feels a lot better. This is great, because I like the Super Nintendo Sparkster better than the Genesis Sparkster, because the Super Nintendo one feels more like Rocket Knight Adventures, where Sparkster kind of has a lot of intrinsic differences to it. Like, you don't have the shooting laser sword projectile anymore. Your rocket pack is constantly charging, and it was an interesting direction to take the game in. And I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but I definitely prefer the Super Nintendo version. They both have great soundtracks, though, which is why I foolishly ordered the vinyl that went along with it, that has all three games soundtracks on vinyl. I didn't need that. I really didn't, because I already had the original game soundtrack on vinyl, which was a wonderful gift from when I went to go out to the store in Ohio last year. But now I have it on vinyl twice, and I have both Sparkster games on vinyl, which also leads me to, on Prime Day, I got a new record player because my old record player was broken. And
you got a nice one, too.
I did. I got a very nice one for $200. It was a Fluence.
Flonase, yeah.
It's a Flonase record player. They do. It's quite nice. I had some issues reading the instructions because I'm a dope, but once I watched a YouTube video of the instructions, I was like, oh, I missed a step entirely. This all makes sense. And it sounds so much better than my old player ever did. Isn't
that wild?
The crunchiness that I complained about on the Mega Man record, that I had all those returns
I told you
with,
I couldn't hear.
Yeah, totally gone. Totally gone. It does not exist on this player. It was my old record player that was the problem.
Well, hey, free records, though.
Yeah, it ultimately worked out in the end, but I've listened to like a bunch of my video game soundtracks and be like, well, shit, this sounds so much better. So I was able to get the records and the Rocket Knight collection, and I'm very, very happy with it. The Rocket Knight collection plays extremely well. It's not one of those Carbon Engine works great. Right. It is not one of those retro game compilations that, let's say, like, I don't know, the reissue of Mr. Gimmick that has a lot of input lag. So While on one hand, hooray, there's an official US release of Mr. Gimmick, but also, ooh, it's really difficult to play, even with Rewind, because this game is a precision physics-based platformer, and when you have input lag as bad as this, it's just not very fun to play.
Right.
But I digress. That is not the Rocket Knight Collection. Rocket Knight Collection is marvelous, and I love it, and it came with an instruction manual and a reversible cover, and I'm just so happy to have it. Moving on, I also played, because of the update, I decided to play some Switch Sports.
All right.
I love that game.
Yeah. How was the basketball?
The basketball is pretty good. Basketball is solid. It was actually not what I did most of the time. I went in there and I played like tennis.
Fair.
Let's see. I did tennis. I did a round of bowling. I did try the basketball, which is pretty neat. It's I don't know. It feels a bit complicated. I'm sure it's not, but my head wasn't totally in it. But I did win, and that was nice. My only real gripe with that game is that you can't earn things while playing offline. I want to earn outfits while playing with the family, but that's not an option. Like, you have to play online to earn any of the outfits, which is bullshit.
Yeah, that is a really weird oversight or not oversight, that's not the right word, but a really weird...
Yeah, it's just a weird decision.
Yeah, decision. There's a very weird decision on their part.
It is definitely a decision, and I don't know. But it is still a really fun game to play. I could just, bowled around. Tennis is really fun. I had a really great match, too. And I still found I was able to get a match real quick. I often forget how well that game sold. Yeah,
it sold really, really well, and it's nice that people are still playing it.
Yeah, because it's fun, and hooray. I finally spent a little time with Satyrn DX. That was the new Flint's arcade game that they sent me a review code for. I think it is out now or is coming out super soon, but either way, it's very Robotron.
Okay.
It's a twin-stick shooter, and it's really just a riff on Robotron. I'm not enough of a Robotron expert to tell you specifically what's different about it, besides like different enemy types. But you're a twin-stick shooter. You're running around. You're trying to save your friends, your little blue friendos, and then fight all the monsters and stop them from killing all of your friends. And it's really hard and kind of fun. I liked it.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to say about it. Like, I don't know what kind of review I'm going to be able to write for this game. There just doesn't seem to be a lot to it. It's like, do you like Robotron? Well, then play this. It's like Robotron. Then play this. But you'll love it. Yeah, it's a good time. But to the one I spent the most time with today, besides Ninja Gaiden, was the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition.
I'm so excited to hear you talk about this, because I really want to know.
Oh, this game's going to be a problem for me. The physical version is marvelous. The fancy stuff that it came with, the replica cartridge that comes with the stand. I set it up on my shelf. I have very limited shelf space to do that stuff with, and that takes up a space because it's just really freaking cool looking. The pin set's really nice, and the art prints that it comes with is really nice. The box is very thick and heavy and well printed. Yeah. And that was all I got to do yesterday because I was working really hard on making sure I got that Mario video done. So today I finally sat down and started playing the game. And it's not NES Remix, that's for sure.
Okay.
I don't know if it's better or worse. I can't quite figure it out, right? I'm playing it, and I'm like, okay, all right. I think I see what we're doing here. I get it. Okay. All right. I'm going to get an A++. That's going to be the first thing you do is get the mushroom in Super Mario Brothers as fast as you can, right? Get that first mushroom.
Okay.
The best I could pull off on that was an A++, and I was like, all right, isn't there an S rank? I feel like there's an S rank. I don't know, but I can't imagine doing that any better. Like, I just cannot imagine how I could possibly do that faster. And then I played the Zelda one, and you have to walk into the cave and get the sword. Again, I did that super quick, and I got an A++. I was like, all right, I'm good with that. And then I think I got to the Donkey Kong one, and I got an S rank. I was like, shit. No, I'm going to be okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with this. I'm just going to be okay. I'm just going to be okay with having an A++ rank. That's as far as I need to go with everything. And then I started getting more S ranks, and I was like, all right. I'm going to think about this. So I tried. That's the speedrun mode, right? There's a bunch of the speedrun challenges, and I find them shockingly entertaining. Like, my thumb hurts from trying to get through them quicker and quicker and quicker. And it's really, really quite fascinating. And then I go to the online mode. It's like, all right, let's try this championship mode. And I got to play a couple of the ones that weren't the ones that I had unlocked through the regular mode yet. And that was really fun to go through. And I won my first one, and then I lost the second one. And when I lost, you're allowed to watch a replay of it. I was like, well, how did this guy do that faster? And then I saw this guy's strategy for killing all the Octorocks on this first stage in Zelda. I was like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think of taking that specific route to kill all 4 of those Octorocks. Yeah. So then I go and try to do that one again by myself, and I beat my I score and got an S rank. And I was like, I wonder if I could actually get that mushroom faster. So I go back to the first one, and I'm like, I'm going at it, and I'm trying it in different ways, trying to like go past it and turn back. And I was like, I feel like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And then I realized that I could do a tap jump, and if I reverse my inertia while I'm in air, I could shave like 0.05 seconds off my time. And that was what I needed to do to get to the S rank. And I was like, I did it. All right, it's time to start tackling all these motherfuckers. I'm going to S rank everything now.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. And it's like, it's so dumb, but it's so easy to restart. It is so fast to just like start right over again. I messed up, start right over again. It's so easy to loop yourself into it. And I feel like I'm going to drive Karen crazy with the sound, because it's just like kind of super repetitive, but like, it seemed like these really simple ones, like figuring out getting the Zelda sword faster. I was like, how can you possibly do this faster? I walk right to it and I pick it up. And then I realized, if you walk into the door, and as soon as you walk into the door, you hold right, you can gain like a pixel or two of moving more to the right as you show up in front of, like, once he starts talking.
Closer to it, yeah.
When he says it's dangerous to go alone is when it stops, and then you have to move ever so slightly less to go up and grab the sword, and that's how I got the S rank on. I was like, well, shit, this is wild.
It's really interesting to think that this will show you a bunch of ways that you can play through these old school fucking games and like, oh, there's new shit to learn about this.
Yeah, like, I'm not a speedrunner. That's never been my thing. I don't know any of the real speedrunning tricks or anything to these games. So messing around with this has been a ball. I am not looking forward to Ice Climber. I accidentally S-ranked the first one. Because I was trying to do something, and I didn't do what I was trying to do, but what I did turned out to be better, and then I S-ranked it. I was like, cool, I hate Ice Climber. This game sucks. My big gripe with this, and it's a huge gripe, and I don't know why it is this specific game. Every game I've played in it has had little to no input lag, right? It has been designed to be played speedrun style. Except Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus has, like, I want to say at least a half-second delay. It is disgusting delay. Just on Kid Icarus. Like,
That's weird.
I don't know how I could possibly S rank those levels, because like getting even the A++ on the first one, you have to go up and kill 4 snakes as quick as you can. And getting the S++ on that was, I had to rethink the timing of the button presses, right? I'd be like, all right, so I want Pit to do a tiny hop to get up onto this platform, which means I have to press the jump button like 3
ever
steps,
so slightly. Yeah.
3 steps before he gets there. So I'm trying to like blind time myself through like, how long do I wait to press the button before what I'm trying to do so that I can do what I'm trying to do. It is terrible. But it's just that
That's
game.
so weird.
I don't understand why it's just that game. It is definitely not a system-wide thing. It's not an emulator thing.
Do you feel like it's a personal attack on you because it is Kid Icarus? Okay.
I do.
That's
feel
probably
very specifically
it, then.
called out.
Yeah, that's probably it.
I want to try and launch it on my Japanese account to see how it plays on there, because I have to assume that it's going to be playing the disk system version of the game, or at least that's what it's all based on. I don't know. I'm very curious if it's going to play any different. There is also something really, really weird and awesome about the way you set up your game. So you can choose your icon or whatever, but you also get to choose your favorite NES game.
Okay.
And it's a list of all of them. Like, if you want Ren and Stimpy Buckaroos to be your favorite NES game, that's listed. Like, every licensed NES game is listed. That's wild. So I picked Mega Man 3 because it is my favorite NES game. I don't think... My heart said Blaster Master, but I was like, I think Mega Man 3 really is my favorite NES game, and I'd be lying if just because I wanted to score points for picking something a little more odd. No, I had to go with Mega Man 3.
Can you change it?
Oh, yeah, you can change it as many times as you want.
All right. Well, that's good.
But I did think that was particularly strange that you can have... Because when I was playing online, it was like just somebody who had Wizardry as their favorite NES game. I was like, this is fucking cool, man. This is a really, really neat thing.
Fucking nerd.
You can do that online mode, or you can compete in the World Championships. And I got a couple S ranks and A++ ranks for my runs. And I was like, that's as good as I'm going to do. Let's see where the rankings land once it's done. Like every week they do a new one or something like that. And they mix up what the games you do are, and you just kind of do your best. So it's a strange product for sure. I don't know how everyone's going to feel about this, but me personally, as a huge fan of NES Remix, I love this, and I love that it is as fun as it is without being what NES Remix was, right? Because NES Remix had all, the bulk of the game was just these, like, here is this basic thing you do in this NES game. You do that, and then you're good to go.
Right.
And then they had these really cool remix things, which were also really super fun and cool. This game doesn't have any remix stuff. It's just speedrun stuff. But I think the objectives are a bit more clever, and the way it's focusing so much on the speedrun and competition angle of it, like when you play like the World Championships mode, there's a crowd cheering, like, while you're playing.
Oh, that's cool.
And, like, when you die, the crowd goes, oh, or, like, the crowd reacts to the things you're doing while you're playing. It's, like, it's weirdly invigorating. There is, like, a setting that you have to change to make your screen, like, actually big. When you're playing just the regular speedrun mode, you're always playing at, like, half size, because your best score is always running right next to yours. So you have that direct comparison, and you can turn that off, which I prefer, because then I can just focus on what I'm doing instead of seeing it side by side, which you can then go back and replay your world records and study what you're doing and see if what you can learn from that. Like, it's a pretty in-depth product. They did a really good job on this. It's just a really strange product.
I'm really fascinated by it, and I don't know if I would get anything out of it. Other than like,
yeah, I'd be very curious to see how it would grab you with the way it entices you to keep trying and beat your score, because it does a very good job of enticing you to not give up and like you could do better. You could do better. Try again. You could do better. I know you can. It's a very good job of nudging you in that direction. So, the only thing I haven't tried yet is multiplayer. I'm going to have a couple friends over to do that. Because I did get a what's it? I got the review for this one. So
oh, cool. So
I get to write the review for this. I get to write the review for Rocket Knight as well, even though I bought both the games. So review codes went elsewhere. But I'm very excited to have people over and try this out, because I'm going to have people over who aren't me, you know? I know these games. I know these games top to bottom. Like, I'm very familiar with these games. Not speedrunning techniques, obviously, but I'm very familiar with them. And the friends I'm going to have play this are just casual gamers. So I'm very curious what they're going to get out of this, and if they're going to find it fun playing with or without me. Because I definitely playing with me, I'm going to see how that goes, and then I want to see how it goes when they play against just 4 people of similar skill set instead of me and then all of them.
Right. Not bragging or anything, but it's just very, very different when you know the games the way that you do versus somebody who just doesn't.
It's like me playing Street Fighter against John. It's just...
Right.
It's not fair. It stops being fun because it's not fair, and it's like, I have years and years of experience with these things, and they don't, so is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been playing, and that's been super fun.
All right, then.
And I got a new record player. I'm so happy about that.
It really is wild how much better the record sounds when you get a new player.
Oh, my God. It really is. I
It's
really
crazy.
thought that old player was a really good player, and it wasn't.
Piece of shit.
All right, we're going to take ourselves a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what's been going on in week-old news. You're listening to the Stone Age Gamer podcast from Geekade.com. Stick around. And now here's a quick look at what's new on the official Stone Age Gamer YouTube channel.
First up, do you like Donut Dodo?
Yes.
I'm talking to you, Chris.
Yes.
Do you like Donut Dodo?
I do.
Yeah, good.
Fucking love it.
Do you wish there was a similar game that prominently featured cow?
Good Lord, do I ever.
Oh, well, sure you do. Who doesn't? Well, if you're like me, and you're like Chris, and you aren't me, because, let's face it, I'm just built different, as the kids would say, then you already know that Cash Cow DX, the latest game from Pixel Studios, is available now on Steam and Atari VCS. You'd also be able to say that you've already played it and think it's great, but you know what? I don't think you have. I think you're lying to make yourself seem cool to the cow-loving spelunking crowd. Well, guess what? I invented cow-themed spelunking and disco pigs. If anything, I said just makes sense to you. Either check yourself into a mental hospital or check out the latest Stone Age Gamer review, Cash Cow DX.
It's Stone Age Game Review? Stone Age
Game Review, sorry. I said gamer, because that's all I care about. Because that's who I am, and that's who I can make car parts for the American man.
Next.
That's who I am. That's who I
In the latest chapter of our Mario retrospective, everything old is new again as Nintendo launches what's widely considered one of the best remakes ever made, Super Mario All-Stars. But while Nintendo works around the clock to create the next true Mario game, they also launched fresh new solo careers.
Old Bowser.
For some of its other lovable characters, Wario and Donkey Kong. What else did Mario get up to in the early 90s? How much damage did the Super Mario Bros. Movie do to the brand? And how the heck did Mario end up on the Philips CDI? Find out in Stone Age Gamer Archaeology, Mario Bros. Retrospective Part 5, Back to Basics.
Speaking of French, season finale of The Boys last night that I watched last night. Oh,
don't tell me. Don't tell me a thing. We're like 4 episodes in, I think. Hopper.
Whoa, Hopper. Whoa.
Somebody opened a door. That every time somebody opens a door.
Tell him, Hopper. Get him. Say, don't fucking open doors on my watch.
Get it. We're under attack.
Knock first.
We're under attack. They're coming here to kill us. You better protect it. Crazy ass dog.
What brand of razor do you use to keep your face smooth and clean? Me?
Occam's.
I don't use razors. Because, that's fucking... Shut up. Occam. I don't use razors because, well, I'm a real man. But if I were to use a razor, it would probably be made by Gillette. Not because it's the superior brand, but because there's a really catchy song about it from the 1950s. What does that have to do with Punch-Out? How come Doki Doki Panic has such different music if it's famously the same game as Super Mario Bros. 2? How much is the Dr. Wily Castle screen hiding in Mega Man 3? Learn all about it in Stone Age Countdown. Top 5 NES songs that are longer than you might think.
For all this and more, be sure to check in with our YouTube channel and follow us at StoneAgeGamer.com. All right, everybody, we are back, and so is my dog. He's done freaking out at the kids and everyone coming home. Are we safe now? Did we make it? Are we going to live? Good boy.
Good boy.
Anyway, well, let's check in with what's new at Stone Age Gamer. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, it's been a crazy couple of weeks at Stone Age Gamer. It actually hasn't. But we did get a nice flash cart restock pre-owned. They put a whole bunch of pre-owned flash carts up on the website, so those are available now. We got some new music stuff in from both Remute, and we got a couple of audio cassettes, like a Boom Shakalaka audio cassette, and one other one I can't remember. And the new music from Remute is an album for 3DO and an album for Jaguar.
Wow.
Yeah. We also got a restock of Retro HQ products. So that's the Jaguar game drive, Lynx game drive, the Mega 7800, and the Neo Pocket game drive. So we're all stocked up on Retro HQ stuff again, and that's pretty much
nice.
what's been going on with us for the last, I guess, 2 weeks, right? Because we didn't do all this last week because of trivia, but that wraps up Stone Age Gamer, which means it is time, everybody. It's time to have a seat and get your buckles buckled up so that you are protected from the impact of Week Old News. That was terrible. Welcome to Week Old News, where we talk about all the news that was new a week ago. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm out of my mind. So I have to bring this one up because we didn't talk about it last week. Everything else is going to be from this past week. But last week, there was one news story that jumped out at me that I felt needed to be discussed, and that was the Real Game Awards.
Okay, I don't know what this is. No. All
right. Do you remember ScrewAttack.com?
Yeah.
Do you remember Stuttering Craig? He was the kind of the main guy.
Kind of.
Yeah, I used to listen to the Side Scrollers podcast all the time. I absolutely loved that show. And I really liked Stuttering Craig's voice. Turns out Stuttering Craig is a right-wing nut job now, and is a bit of a grifter. He's been just doing a whole lot of, anti-woke raging on the internet, and he has launched something called the Real Game Awards, which is like the anti-woke Game Awards.
Nice. Excellent.
It's you have to anybody who works in mainstream gaming media, or anybody who has even if you get review codes for anything, then you are disqualified from being a part of the Real Game Awards, because you're part of the problem if you get review codes. Which I'm not sure how. I don't think that everyone who writes in the video game space should have to purchase every game that they review. Like, let's say I need to review 10 games this week, and then 10 more games next week. Like, how am I supposed to afford to buy all of those games in order to review them? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I understand the theory
that's not
behind
how any industry works.
It's not. If you can't be objective about something you've gotten a review code for, then you shouldn't be writing the review. Like, if a review code is effectively buying you off, then you're not qualified to write that review. But I feel like, generally speaking, that's not how it works. Like, you're not going to have that job in the first place if the review code is just going to make you automatically give games good scores. I don't know. That's just me. But let me see if I can find... there was a whole lot of... Like, everybody can be a part of the Real Game Awards. You have to pay money in order to, like, you have to be some sort of member in order to be involved in the Real Game Awards for real gamers.
Right. You shouldn't be able to get review codes, but you should pay this cunt.
You absolutely have to pay them. And now, granted, you would be paying less than the people pay to be involved in, like, the Grammys or something. But you're dudes on the internet. You're not, like, a big established thing. So let's see. Our board of directors is made up of industry veterans and gamers. Everyone involved is involved as a passion project because they want to help give gamers a voice again. We have 3 main rules for our board of directors. They're not allowed to vote, they're not allowed to be on any press list or receive perks from AAA developers. They cannot work for traditional access gaming media.
Cool.
The board of directors is, let's see, we've got Stuttering Craig. We've got D-Day Cobra, Cabrutus. He was the curator of Sweet Baby Inc. DEI Detective. Detected, you know, the thing that was that went through to try to find to find anything that had something to do with this woke Sweet Baby Inc. injecting wokeism into all of your favorite games. So there's your board of, like, that invalidates pretty much all this right here. Is this fellow right here being on the board? And Mark the Cyborg, and that's it. That's the board thus far. This was. Look, I am all for there being an alternative to the Game Awards. I think the Game Awards are disgusting. We've made no bones about. At least on this show, I have made no bones about the way I feel about the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley's Game Awards are ridiculous, and I would love for there to be a proper alternative out there that actually takes this seriously. But this is coming from the Take Back Games. Like, this is coming from the crowd of, no, we're the real gamers, and that whole mentality really irks me. I find it very gross. It's exhausting.
If you click on this Cabrutus guy's DEI detected site and you look at the games, one of the games that has DEI detective is Goodbye Volcano High. Yeah, that's not for you. It's okay that it's not for you.
No, it's not okay that it's not for them. Because
no, it is.
It has to be. You cannot have games or media that are told from a perspective that's not the norm. You just can't. And if you do, why are you doing that? It's a waste. These people shouldn't have their own stories told.
DEI detected for stuff. Tales of Kenzera Zhao. Yeah! it's not a game about a straight white male protagonist. Just fuck all the way off with this shit, man. God damn it. Just god damn it.
I understand it. I understand it from a grifting perspective, right? Because, you know, it's outrage media. You've made this into a villain. Like, well, I can turn this into a villain and I can rally troops and then they can pay me to fight the good fight. And it's exhausting, and it bums me out so much because I really, really did. I listened to this interview that Craig did with Nick something or other. He works with Yahtzee for the Second Wind. He used to work for The Escapist, and for some reason he agreed to go on and have a chat with him, a live chat, and then there were like other people there that were even more gross, and he just tried to have a calm, rational conversation with him, and I think it went relatively calmly, but it cuts off pretty abruptly after he says that because he receives review codes from time to time, he wouldn't be allowed to vote in the Real Game Awards, and then I think things turned pretty ugly afterwards too. But I don't know. It's lots of silly internet drama, but it just bums me out because I loved side scrollers. That was another big inspiration for kind of the feeling that I wanted to be this show. Like, it was so joyous, and they just talked about video games, and when you look at the content that's up on the side scrollers page now, it all seems to be like complaining about YouTube drama and complaining about what games aren't. And it's like, I feel like at this point in time, if you can't find games that are exciting to you, then you're not looking for them. Like, there's not a dearth of video games out there. There's so much good stuff out there to play. And not every game is going to be great. Some games are going to have stuff that sticks out weird. Like, I don't know. I don't really like AAA games in general, so it's not really bothering me, but it's exhausting. Anyway,
I don't understand why. I've never understood it. I never will understand it. If something is out in the world and you're not into it, shut the fuck up. Like, it's okay that you're not into it. It's okay that it's not for you. I don't understand spending time thinking about things that you don't like.
Yeah, like, I mean, not to turn it into Star Wars, but like, holy crap, the biggest Star Wars YouTuber in the world is Star Wars Theory, whose entire page is about hating Star Wars. The amount of stuff that he complained about with the Acolyte, which personally I had some issues with that show. I very much enjoyed it, but there was also a lot about that show that I didn't like. I think it had some real serious pacing problems. But the stuff that this dude was complaining about, it was the guy that started the fire and space thing, you know? He was the one who was complaining about Andor because there were bricks and screws. Like, the disingenuous nature of the stuff he complains about is just really obnoxious. And that it's a whole grift. It's this whole outrage culture that exists just to complain about stuff that doesn't need to be complained about. Like, well, if you don't like it, then don't watch it. But like, before the show started, he was all like, "Oh, they'd better have Darth Plagueis in there," and sure as shit, he shows up in the last episode, and he's complaining about it because this 2-second cameo of Darth Plagueis turning around a corner ruins the legacy of Anakin Skywalker. Like, no, it doesn't, and you know it doesn't.
Shut the fuck up.
You know it doesn't. That's the thing. You are well aware that it doesn't. You know exactly what. You're smarter than this because you can speak out loud. You can tie your shoes, right? You're not a complete drooling pile of vomit on the floor. You are a functioning human being, so you know what you're saying is nonsense. And yet, here you are spewing it. It's just so infuriating. But you know what else is completely batshit crazy? Push Square reports Sunsoft's retro platformer Aero the Acrobat is swinging onto PS5 and PS4 in August. Yes, Aero the Acrobat is coming back for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch. Not in a new game, and not in a compilation. Just Aero the Acrobat. The first game. Not remastered, not touched up.
Just
the game. Aero the Acrobat. No Aero 2, no Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, no slapping them all in a Rocket Knight. an infinitely better game than Arrow the Acrobat just had a collection put together that has 3 games in it. And this is just Arrow the Acrobat. You could have done
That's awesome.
Arrow, Arrow 2, maybe some of the handheld ports, I don't know, Arrow, Arrow 2, and 0 would have been like, that's your bare minimum. That's what you do at the bare minimum here. Why are we just releasing Arrow the Acrobat? This was on Virtual Console for Wii
every
U
platform
for like $8, and I don't even know that it sold very well there at $8. Like, what are we doing? What is happening right now?
It's a little weird. It's a little weird.
That's a strange thing, and I'm all for Sunsoft being back. I'm all for Sunsofting it up. There is other news happening in this very segment we're going to talk about that is really cool, fun Sunsoft stuff. But then I look at something like this and I say, okay, Arrow was a decent game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a decent game. But selling it on its own, I think, is bonkers. Selling Trip World on its own, of course, there were no sequels. Selling Gimmick on its own, of course, there were no sequels. But Arrow the Acrobat was a series. What are you doing? You weirdos.
Yeah.
So confused. Yeah. I'm not going to buy it, and I'm a nutcase.
You are.
Speaking of complete lapses in sanity, Go Nintendo reports, Densetsu no Starfy 1 through 3 now available for Nintendo Switch Online members. Yes, the original 3 Game Boy Advance Starfy games are finally officially released in North America and have not been translated at all.
Nope.
It did 0 localization, just here's the Japanese games, you can figure it out.
Good luck.
Not that the Starfy games, it's my understanding, they don't exactly have the deepest story in the world, but in the very trailer for these 3 games, when they're showing off Starfy 2, one of the things they're showing is just a text box with a bunch of Japanese scrolling by. I don't know what any of this means. Apparently there's a segment in one of the games that's like very specific, like it's a puzzle you have to solve specifically with knowledge of the Japanese language. Like, these games, I don't imagine it would be that difficult to localize them. And it's just like the other Japanese games they throw up on NSO, like the puzzle games. And like, okay, at the end of the day, you can make it make sense, but only if you don't need a tutorial, because the tutorial's not going to be in English.
Definitely
so, like,
not,
I had to go online to learn how to play Wrecking Crew 98, which is kind of a neat game. And I've always wanted to play it. But, like, would it really have been so difficult to just translate the text in these Super Nintendo games? Starfy, okay, that's a little bit more of an effort, right? Because there's a story going on here. But
sure,
the puzzle games, like Panel de Pon, couldn't you just, like, translate the menus? I feel like that's an afternoon's worth of work. Like, it's maybe a paragraph tops worth of words that need to be translated. Do you think you could do us that favor, Nintendo? I'm so happy you put these Starfy games out and that they're available, and I am genuinely going to try them because I've always wanted to.
Sure,
but could you just put this just a little bit of effort, just a tiny bit of effort into them? I'm begging you. Like when they put Earthbound Beginnings out. That was a translation that
I thought was quite weird. I thought it was especially weird that in the trailer they highlighted the fact that there was just a bunch of Japanese text that you can't read. It's like, weird. It's a weird choice.
Yeah, I don't understand. I love that they're letting these Japanese games onto North American systems. Like being able to play Mysterious Murasame Castle. It's super cool. But like,
sure,
there's just a little bit of text. It's not that much to localize. You don't have to full-on localize it. You don't need to change things to make it appeal to a Western audience on these ancient games. At this point, all you gotta do is just give me an English translation. That's all we need, is just a basic English translation. Anything more is overkill. We really don't need to do much, but you gotta do something. You gotta give me something here. And clearly you don't have to, because Nintendo doesn't listen to me. They're doing just fine. but I would really, really appreciate it if they do just a little something, just a little bit more than they're doing. IGN reports, The Karate Kid Street Rumble, a pixel art beat-em-up announced for PC and consoles. I did not see this coming.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I posted the trailer in our Discord. Looks fucking dope.
It does. It looks great. And this is... We've got, what, G.I. Joe, we got Power Rangers. Like, there's all these properties getting picked up for beat-em-ups, and I never even imagined Karate Kid. And because it doesn't make much sense, right? The other characters
it makes as
are
much
insane.
sense as any of the rest of them.
I mean, well, that was it. In the other ones, there's like a bunch of characters who are fighters. This one's like, okay, you can be Daniel and Mr. Miyagi, and for some reason, you can be what's her name from Karate Kid 2? I assume that's who that is. And Kumiko, right? Or Allie Mills, who is not a fighter. Like, okay,
I mean, she is
not
not a fighter, though.
I guess. I don't. Love it. I love it because it looks ridiculous. It looks so good. The pixel art is great. Sign me the hell up. I'm so into this. I hope you can unlock Hilary Swank.
Oh, that would be so good. Or Jaden Smith.
Oh my god. I don't remember his characters. I remember. I don't, because like Jackie Chan was Mr. Han, I think. Not because I never saw that one. But I have seen the next Karate Kid, so if we can unlock Julie-san, yes, please.
Oh, man. What else? What other properties do we need? Like, because we've got Toxic Crusade. So, Turtles, obviously. We've done Simpsons. We've done X-Men. We've got Toxic Crusaders coming out. G.I. Joe, Power Rangers. We've got Karate Kid. Jay and Silent Bob had their beat 'em up. Mm-hmm. Scott Pilgrim had to beat 'em up. So, like, what else? What are we missing here?
I just wrote about this on Stone Age Gamer last week.
You see how I know? You see what I'm doing? Shh, give it away.
No, I didn't write about it last week. When did I write about it? 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
I don't know. It was a couple weeks ago, but I wrote about it. And where is it? Is it really that long ago? Let's see. That one,
I thought it was only a couple weeks ago, and you were going to be like,
I thought so
"Hey,
too.
If you would like my thoughts on this, you could go." I'm trying to drive traffic, Chris.
I understand, and now I want to know where the hell that article went. There it is. Oh, because I was focusing on cartoons. All right, so we've got Toxic Creators, we've got G.I. Joe, we've got Power Rangers. Those are all coming.
Right.
The number one, most obvious one that I can't believe doesn't exist is Masters of the Universe.
100%.
Right? Masters of the Universe, that's just crazy. How does that not exist? Thundercats?
Yeah.
Thundercats would be great. One that I personally really want to see is Voltron.
Oh, that would be dope.
Right? Because you got the actual soldier, you got the actual characters, you could have to beat them up with all of them, and then you could have special stages where you get into Voltron. Similar to what they're doing with this Power Rangers game.
It's 5 lion bots that form a super bot.
God, I love Voltron. I friggin' love Voltron. I absolutely love Voltron. And I am about due for a rewatch of that newer series that came on Netflix. That was really good.
That was good. Yeah.
I really liked that. I think Gargoyles would make a great one.
It would.
And then the one that I actually want to see, I think most of all, which wouldn't make a goddamn lick of sense, but beat 'em ups don't have to, as we just discussed with the Karate Kid one, I would like a Dragon Ball Z beat 'em up.
That makes a ton of sense.
I want a Dragon Ball Z beat 'em up that does not focus on, Super Saiyan God or anything crazy. I want the basic quote-unquote Z Warriors, right? I want to choose between Tien, Chaozu, Yamcha, Krillin, Piccolo, Goku, Gohan, maybe eventually Vegeta and Trunks. I don't know. But, I want that. The core Dragon Ball Z, like the way it started. I beat 'em up with all of them, similar power levels. Doesn't make any goddamn sense because it doesn't have to. Just make it fun and really cool looking. Anyway, you want to read my article? It's on the Stone Age Gamer blog. But we're going to move on to the next news story.
Just
what do you want? What do you want?
Before you move on, and I am 100% serious about this. I want the Halloween cereal mascots.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Give me Count Chocula and Frankenberry and Boo Berry and Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy in a fucking crazy beat 'em up. That's what I want.
Honestly, like a full-on cereal beat 'em up.
Yes.
I think
sure.
God, I wrote about that a long time ago. A cereal Smash Brothers game, like Tony the Tiger and the Smacks Frog or whatever, and Sugar Bear. Like, get them all in there. Cereal brawl. That would be amazing.
Yep. Man, sold.
Nobody could beat Wendell. That guy's crazy. Remember when we were kids, there was 3 of them, and then all of a sudden they just started making commercials about how Wendell went fucking nuts, and then all of a sudden the other 2 were gone, and it was just like Wendell being crazy. This cereal got real unhinged, and then they just gave up on the chefs entirely and just started having the actual Cinnamon Toast Crunch squares with googly eyes doing weird shit.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing.
Very. Anyway, moving on. Time Extension reports that 2 months after shipping CDRs to customers, Limited Run Games still hasn't issued replacements.
Naturally.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was just talking about how happy I was about a Limited Run purchase, and I do think that on the whole, I like Limited Run, generally speaking, but this CDR situation was not great, and I feel like they need to be a lot more upfront about the process of fixing this than they are. 2 months, I don't know how long it takes to get a game professionally pressed. Clearly they have to fix it, but they should be issuing some regular updates on this situation so that they don't wind up with more negative press like this, because
yeah.
It's my official response. Anyway, Push Square reports, random, we regret to inform you that Doom has been ported to a sex toy.
Yep. That's great.
I'm just going to read the article. It's very short. For some unknown reason, the human drive to port the 1993 classic Doom to anything with a microchip remains strong, even 3 decades later, famously running on calculators, freezers, and even Microsoft Notepad. We regret to inform you that someone got it working on an off-brand fleshlight modified so that it vibrates when you fire a weapon and again when an enemy is killed. Dubbed Dong Doom and hailed by Destructoid as, quote, the most pleasurable version of Doom if any Doom game to date, this unholy creation comes from the mind of YouTuber Aaron Christoffel, who previously succeeded in porting the game to an electric toothbrush. Apparently the model of adult toy in question, from Tifo Run, if you want to make your own, was selected as it was the only one Christoffel could find that featured a display capable of rendering the seminal shooter.
Wow. What kind of adult toy needs a screen?
I don't know. I don't know, Dan. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just trying to think of like why I would need a screen in my vibrator or butt plug or cock ring or whatever the fuck.
It's the fleshlight, right? So like,
yeah.
I suppose you could look at it while you're using it.
But why would it need a screen? What am I looking at?
Just your options, you know.
I suppose like suction options or
right.
I don't know.
I mean,
I've never used the fleshlight. I don't know. I don't either. I have to assume it's got settings, you know, similar to like the vibration on your controller or something. And maybe a screen makes those settings easier to choose from instead of having to push a button to cycle through. You could have a screen where you could choose the one you want and go it that way. I don't know. I mean, because like I'm looking at it, this is a pretty nice screen on this Tifferun sex toy.
Well, you
here.
know, they take it seriously.
It's not a bad screen, but the Tifferun telescopic masturbator.
We're deep diving in this, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
while you're deep diving on that, IGN reports Microsoft has made an Xbox controller shaped like Deadpool's ass.
Yeah, no, that's pretty great.
I don't know what else to say about this one. I just thought it was fascinating.
I don't know why it's great.
This is a very strange product tie-in. It's also one of those things you can't just go out and buy. You have to win it in a contest
That's all I have
or
to
something.
say about that.
Which I think is ridiculous. I mean, if we're going to do this, let's do this.
Did I lose you?
You're going to sell a controller with a butt, then just sell a controller with a butt. Don't make 3 of them and give them away as prizes. Butts for all. Anyway.
There you are. I lost you for a second. That was weird.
I thought you were just really into whatever you were looking into the fleshlight situation there.
No. I mean, I am looking here now at the Tifferun, what is this one called? The Spaceship Automatic Stroker. I don't know. That's odd.
Seems unnecessary, but, different strokes. Literally.
Literally.
Kotaku reports, this was neat. Actually, last week, we would have talked about the weird Gabo-style video that Nintendo put out, Who is Emio? Yes. And there was all kinds of fun speculation on what this Emio character was, and everyone was sure that it was a Bloober Team original IP horror story. They had this all figured out, and they were fucking wrong.
Yeah, could not have been more wrong.
It's a new Famicom Detective Club game, the first new game since 1989. I cannot believe this is real, and I'm actually thrilled about it. Not because I've played either of the other ones. It's just it just gives me so much hope. All right, we doing this? Cool. What else we doing? Keep digging into
other weird shit you got?
Give me new entries to all your weird ass old franchises. Pile them on. I'm into it. I'm 100% into it. It looks wild. I thought those Famicom Detective Club games looked pretty neat. I just was waiting for there to be a physical version, and there never was. At least not North America. Maybe with this coming out, it'll convince them to do some sort of limited run of a physical print of the first 2 games. That would be interesting.
That would be.
Because I'm interested. I'd give them a go. I like Phoenix Wright. I like this style of game to an extent. So
sure.
I think this is the first internally developed M-rated Nintendo game. Because it has been rated M. It's coming out next month. It's a nice, creepy serial killer story about people killing themselves with bags over their heads with smiley faces drawn on them.
Super fun.
Yeah, it's friggin' weird. And I'm all for it existing. So, yeah. Godspeed. Emio is probably not going to be your next Smash character. I see. It's just
probably not.
Yeah. Not a new IP, not a whole new thing. I know there's lots of people who are very upset about it. And I'm like, you know what? This was brilliant. You know why this was brilliant? Because there was no way, if they announced this thing just on its own, this probably was not going to get a whole lot of traction. As we probably made a new Famicom Detective Club. But now they created this weird mystery thing about it, and it's tied into this Famicom Detective Club, and lo and behold, it got more attention than it probably would have otherwise. So,
yeah,
I think that's great. Go Nintendo. Good job. Speaking of Go Nintendo reports Cho-Aniki Collection announced for Switch.
Mm-hmm.
If you're unfamiliar with Cho-Aniki, Choaniki, just look it up. It defies description.
It really does.
And this is getting a collection. Arrow the Acrobat is being sold solo.
Yeah.
What are we even doing? What are we even doing here? What is the world coming to?
I don't know.
Here's some good news. Here's some great news. Nintendo Life reports Gimmick 2's first gameplay trailers packed with platforming puzzles and toe-tapping tunes. Yesterday morning, they actually showed the trailer with we finally showed gameplay of Gimmick 2. I say finally, they announced it like a month ago, but I was very excited to see some actual gameplay, and I think it looks fantastic. I was really disappointed with the Gimmick re-release from this company, but this new flavor of Gimmick, it's probably not going to have the same issues because it's not trying to emulate an old game. It's a new thing from scratch. I think the puzzles look really interesting. Looks like a great evolution of the basic gameplay tenets set up in the original Gimmick. I'm very excited about this. And then I got, 15 minutes later, I got 10 trillion times more excited because I found out David Wise is writing music for this game.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
I'm out of my mind hyped for this. This is going to be great. I hope it's going to be great. It looks great, and I'm sure it's going to sound great. I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, it looks dope. It looks really fun.
Yeah, I love
David
Mr.
Wise.
Gimmick.
What more do you want?
Me? I don't know. Bag of 20s, but other than that, I'm good.
Yeah.
This is an interesting little story here. Time Extension reports, has your SNES pad seen better days? Don't worry, a fix is coming. There are people out there trying to design the rubber membranes that go inside the controller. I didn't even realize this was a problem, but they are working on designing ones that are as close to OEM as possible. I thought the newer ones, I had no idea that this was a thing, but apparently it is. The newer ones just don't have the same feel as the old ones. So, apparently someone's been working real hard on it. Oh, excuse me. Mr. Add-ons is working on a replacement membrane which promises to be as close as possible to the feel of the original, and it looks like it's shaping up nicely. That's great.
Nice.
Keep those Super Nintendo controllers like my favorite controller ever, so I want to see it doing well. Last week, I think this was actually a really big story, and this part I didn't know. This is actually just getting reported on now. Kotaku reports FTC calls Xbox Game Pass price hike, quote, exactly the sort of consumer harm it tried to stop. I think it was last week, right, when Xbox announced all these crazy price hikes for Game Pass?
Yeah.
Making that service less and less of a good deal by the day. Which it has
to be, though. We've talked about it, that it's just not a sustainable business practice.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm a fucking idiot, and I can see that.
We all saw this coming with this purchase of Activision. This is getting grosser by the day, but apparently the FTC is trying to do something about this. On Wednesday, the Federal Trade Commission pointed to Microsoft's recent pricing overhaul of Xbox Game Pass as evidence of the harm its merger with Activision Blizzard has had on consumers. The agency filed a new letter in its ongoing appeal of last year's deal, calling the changes, quote, exactly the sort of consumer harm from the merger that the FTC alleged. So, yeah, I guess the whole the whole merger thing that went through is not as done a deal as I thought. I didn't know there was even an ongoing appeal about it.
It is a done deal, but it is a deal that can be undone if it wins on appeals. Which I don't know that it will, but...
I don't know that it will either, but it does seem all this consolidation in the world of video games is kind of gross.
Very much so.
Moving on, Pure Xbox reports Halo TV show canceled by Paramount Plus after 2 seasons.
Yep.
I
didn't love it.
I can't say I've heard too many good things about this show, but I can say that if you fucked up a Halo TV show bad enough to get it canceled, then you really fucked up. Because it just seems like one of those things, if you just adapt the games, you should be good to go. Or at least adapt the core tenets of the games. And it seems to me that having Master Chief be a dude who's just always not wearing his helmet kind of goes against one of the core tenets of the world built in the games. And I don't know Halo super well, but I do know that Master Chief doesn't take his helmet off. And apparently he does all the time in the show.
Yeah, I think I watched I gave it a decent shot too. I watched the first 5-6 episodes of the first season. which might have even been the whole season. And I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is fine, but not necessary.
And that's the problem. It should have been necessary, right? A Halo TV series seems like the kind of thing that should have been a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they definitely fumbled that ball. I know there are some people who do like it, and I'm sure it's a decent show, but it just did not really seem to capture the same fervor that a new Halo game would. And also, there was Paramount signing a multi-billion-dollar merger with Skydance Media, so maybe that had something to do with it too. Hooray for corporate consolidation! Yay! It never stops.
It's never a bad thing.
And last but not least, speaking of never a bad thing, IGN reports the dreaded blue screen of death hits Windows systems across the globe amid major IT outage. So I didn't really understand what was going on because I'm a Mac user, so this didn't really affect me except for the silly gambling thing I do. The article says companies across the world are suffering an IT outage that affects Windows operating systems. Flights have been canceled, banking halted, and commerce, healthcare, and travel delayed amid one of the most significant global IT outages ever. TV studios were even forced to pause broadcasting. I don't understand what happened. It was like there was an update that automatically went out.
That broke everything.
CrowdStrike. What is CrowdStrike? That's what I don't understand.
It's a security thing.
Okay. CrowdStrike blamed the issue on one of its updates for Windows. Shares in the company were down by more than 20% in unofficial trading in the U.S., amounting to an incredible $16 billion loss in value. Microsoft also suffered a drop in value in pre-market trading, although by a more modest 2%. Yeah, I don't really care what their company values are worth, but boy, that's a thing.
Yeah, like it's. I mean, we depend on the robots, Chris.
And like, from what I've come to understand, this isn't like this isn't one of those. Like, every single computer that was affected by this needs to be like. It's not something they can just turn on from a distance. Every system that's been affected has to be manually like shut down and restarted and fixed. It's in some sort of way.
Like that.
At least that's my understanding.
It's pretty wild.
That is a crazy-ass story. Hooray for auto updates. Well, also, never a problem.
Never, ever, ever, ever a problem.
Never goes wrong. All right. With that wraps up Week Old News. I had fun. I know you had fun, too, because it's Week Old News, and it's always fun when it's old.
Right, pants are off.
That's never went on in the first place. With that, we are going to take ourselves our second break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about Ninja Gaiden for the Sega Master System for the Alphabet Super Series. You are listening to the Stone Age Gamer podcast from Geekade.com. Stick around. Hi everyone, Kris here. Podcast listening is free, but podcast creation is not. That's why the Geekade Patreon exists. In an effort to help us pay the bills, we've got a Patreon page set up where you can gain access to our monthly podcast topic schedule, get early access to many of our shows, and more. If you'd like to help support Geekade and keep these shows running week after week, head over to the Geekade Patreon page, linked in the show notes of this very podcast.
Hey, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Andy. Neither of us are David Crane, but we are the hosts of David Crane's Amazing Movie Time.
That's our monthly Geekade Patreon exclusive podcast that covers movies that are cult classics, weird, or just sometimes laughably bad.
We ourselves have at least two of those qualities, so I guess it makes sense to hear what we think of those movies in retrospect.
You can hear all that and more by becoming a Geekade Patreon supporter.
And, as always, be kind, rewind.
When you hear the words cross-stitch, you probably think of a grandma lovingly making a Christmas stocking, a picture of a lighthouse, or maybe a Bible verse with flowers. But that's not what we do at Shoot the Moon Stitches. We take the old-fashioned art of cross-stitch and pair it with contemporary themes and imagery to create striking works of art that make the perfect gift for anyone who grew up with the internet and has a wicked sense of humor and an appreciation for pop culture. From cult favorite TV shows and movies, to retro video games, to TikTok trends. If it's made you smile, chances are we've stitched it. You can shop our selection of art and gifts by going to Etsy.com and searching Shoot the Moon Stitches. For all your fun, feminist, fandom fiber art needs, visit Shoot the Moon Stitches.
We are Safe at Home, the leading dog rescue in the heart of New Jersey. Are you searching for a loyal companion, a dog that will bring love and joy to your home? Look no further than Safe at Home. At Safe at Home, we believe in giving every dog a second chance. We rescue, rehabilitate, and find loving forever homes for dogs in need, right here in the Garden State. Our dogs are ready to make a lasting impact on your life. Each one has a unique story, a wagging tail, and an incredible capacity for love. When you adopt from Safe at Home, you're not just gaining a pet, you're becoming a part of our family. Our dedicated team ensures a seamless adoption process, providing ongoing support and guidance. With New Jersey's beautiful parks, beaches, and trails, you and your new furry friend will have endless opportunities for adventures and cherished memories. Safe at Home relies on the support of compassionate individuals like you. Your donations and volunteer work enable us to continue saving lives and finding forever homes for these amazing dogs. Join us in creating a safer, happier community for dogs in New Jersey. Together we can make a difference and give every dog the chance to feel safe at home. Visit our website or call us now to learn about how you can be a part of the Safe at Home mission. Safe at Home, because every dog deserves to be loved and protected. www.safeathomerescue.org.
Hey, do you like Robert Downey Jr.? Do you like the way Robert Downey Jr. has a charismatic and oftentimes improvisational tone? Well, we're a podcast that has no affiliation with the actor Robert Downey Jr. However, we do embody his spirit and tone of fun and improvisation because we don't follow a script. And if we tried, we'd fail. Our podcast is called Get Another Star Trek Podcast, where we cover the entire library of Star Trek. So come check us out. Yet Another Star Trek Podcast. We're available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, we're back and better than ever, and it is time for the Alphabet Super Series. It is time to talk about Ninja Gaiden for Sega Master System. Ninja Gaiden for Sega Master System was released exclusively in PAL territories in July of 1992. It was developed by Sims and published by Sega. It was obviously licensed by Tecmo, but they seem to have had very little involvement in it at all. Dan, why did you pick this game?
Mostly because it's just such a weird entry into the Ninja Gaiden like mythos, right? Obviously not something that we got here. And like it was a game that I learned about way later in my like fandom, right? Because the original Ninja Gaiden came out on the NES in 1988. And it's fucking Ninja Gaiden. It's amazing. Love Ninja Gaiden. And then you got Ninja Gaiden 2 like 2 years later, and then Ninja Gaiden 3 like a year or two after that. And then there was Game Gear
Shadow on Game Boy.
And then there's an Atari Lynx one. And then for us here, we got the Ninja Gaiden trilogy in 95. But then really, I mean, we went from Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom, in 1991, all the way until 2004, when we got Ninja Gaiden, again on the Xbox.
For Xbox, right? Yeah. And that was not the same. That was, you can't even really count that as a reboot. It has absolutely nothing to do with the original Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah,
it's gameplay-wise, it doesn't integrate almost anything, even vaguely similar to the original games. Yeah, it's a great game.
I love it, but it is just not what we grew up on. So, as you start, like, becoming a person on the internet and whatever, as I was a younger man, I was like, what is this Ninja Gaiden for the Master System? Like, oh, it was never released over here. Well, what an odd thing. Let me check this out. And playing it, back when I was in like my early 20s or whatever, when I found out about it, it's like, oh, this is really fucking cool. Like, this is really good. This is really different from the NES version, but this is really, really cool. I really, really like this. And, as the idea for this series came up again, I was like, this is something that we should really play through, because I still don't know how many people know about this, because it's not a North American game. It was not released here.
I had not played much of this game before doing this Super Series. I had never played through it, and I still haven't played through it because reasons. We'll get to that. But I did put a decent chunk of time into it. It is a very interesting game. I also find it extremely interesting that this is not the same game as the Game Gear game, because Game Gear and Master System are effectively the same platform in a lot of ways.
Pretty much.
So
yeah,
that there are two entirely different Ninja Gaiden games. Not like one was a sequel to the other, just completely different take on Ninja Gaiden entirely.
Yeah,
which is nuts to me. So that's pretty weird. This is a really interesting game. I don't think it comes anywhere near the NES games, especially in terms of just presentation. It does tell a story, but it doesn't have the cinematic flair that the NES games had. It doesn't have your, the big splash screen where you're looking at a gorgeously drawn tower or something. The story is a lot more basic and less insane. There's
a lot more
demonic statues and CIA agents and stuff.
It's a lot more old school, like kung fu movie.
Yeah, there's a scroll was stolen. You go kill a sumo wrestler, and
because fuck that sumo wrestler.
You beat that sumo wrestler, and then like the first cutscene after it is like it was stabbed in the back, and there's blood everywhere. It's like, oh god. Okay, all right. So this is what we're playing. There's blood everywhere. This is fascinating. So Ryu moves way faster in this. Like his horizontal
so much
movement
faster.
is so much faster than the NES one. But it also has the like jumping on, grabbing onto the bottom of ledges that Ninja Gaiden 3 introduced. Like it's the same mechanic, which is really kind of neat to see here. Except he does you can do a flip up and land directly on it, whereas Ninja Gaiden 3 he jumps up to land on the platforms.
Yeah.
It does have this more floaty nature to it in general. It feels very Master System, if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah.
So I played it on Mega SD on original on a Sega Genesis, right? I guess not completely on original hardware. I didn't play it on my Master System, even though I have Master Everdrive. I don't know why I didn't do that, but I played it on my Mega SD, and so I didn't have any save states or cheat codes or anything to use. The waterfall level can fuck all the way off. Can absolutely just fucking die, because it goes much like the NES game. There's no vertical scrolling. So, like, when you go to the next area, vertically speaking, it just, flashes into the next screen. Except this one, like, you have to do, like, a jump up to investigate what's there first, because there's no way to, like, it doesn't, in the NES game, whenever you move to a different, like, vertical location or something, there's some sort of natural place to stop. Like, it never just puts you in the middle of a bunch of fucking nonsense. So, but this game does that. So you'll jump up and be like, oh shit, that's where the platform is. But when you go back down to the previous screen, all the enemies have respawned, including the fucking birds, which will knock you off and you gotta go all the way back down again. The waterfall level, I hated the waterfall level, but I made myself get through it. And then I got to the ice level, and that's when I stopped playing the game.
Aw. That's a shame.
I fucked around with it
that
for a little
ice
while.
level
Said,
fucking sucks. It's awful.
Absolutely not. So I went to YouTube and I quick looked at what the rest of the game had to offer, and it was neat, but I don't think I really missed out much by not completing the game myself. There was just no way it was going to be worth. Was I though? There was still a bunch of nonsense after. It was what, 2 or 3 more levels after that?
2.
And I would have had to spend how much time forcing myself to get through that ice level? No, it just was not worth the effort to me.
It is a horrible, horrible ice level. However... It's
not a well-designed game. It's not. Close. Well,
there's
close.
A lot
there's
of
really cool stuff
shit.
In there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nonsense.
There's a lot of elements to it where it's very much of that... If you put yourself back into that, old school... when we were kids playing video games of, I just got to fucking memorize what's coming up next. I just have to know,
the NES
just trial and error.
Had that in it, but there was more of a logic to it than in this one. There's so much just there was a degree of logic, and it was obviously punishingly difficult, the NES game.
Sure.
And the NES game also has that bullshit where you get to the last boss and you die and it sends you back 6 stages because the game just hates you. It just absolutely maliciously wants you to be sad. And this game does not have that. This game has stuff that's just designed poorly. Like I was talking about with the whole vertical thing. Like you go to a spot in the stage, and then you have to go back to a spot in the stage, and everything is respawned and things will just... There's even more... I think this game has even more shit that just jumps out at you to kill you than even the NES game does. And the NES game is full of cheap fucking nonsense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I would agree that it's more. I think I would say it's probably on the same level of bullshit in the NES one. The NES one is just something that we're both so fucking familiar with. You know what I mean? That while it is in there because I know it's coming, it is... If you put somebody fresh in front of Ninja Gaiden today for the very first time, they'd turn it off about 2 minutes in and be like, "This is fucking bullshit. I'm not playing this."
The NES game or this one?
Both of them. Both of them.
See,
maybe not 2
disagree.
minutes, but as soon as you get to that first fucking bird that takes off half of your health and knocks you down into a pit, all right, I'm done. I'm out. Fuck this shit.
See, now, I get that with this Master System one, but the thing that made the NES one so special and continues to make the NES one special is it's wrapped up in this presentation that is really interesting. Even today, the presentation is super interesting to look at, and the game feels really good to play. The NES Ninja Gaiden is so sharp. It's so... Even if Ryu doesn't run as fast, the gameplay itself is quicker, and the level design is very, very intelligently done. The first and second NES Ninja Gaiden games are extremely well designed, if way over the top difficult with some super cheap nonsense in it too, obviously. But this one has all the levels are just so much less interesting in this. There's no interesting jumps. Like the wall jumping, I think, is a very cool mechanic in this one. How it's not as you just latch onto the wall, you can climb like you can in Ninja Gaiden 2. This one's more of a almost more Metroid-y in the way that you leap from side to side. But none of the places you do that in are as interesting as you do them in the NES games. It never feels very good to play. And the same thing goes for the combat.
I disagree.
The hit boxes for Ryu's sword in the NES game and the way the enemies die are very quick, very logical. Whereas I found myself playing this one being like, why didn't that hit? Or why didn't that hit? Or I felt like I pressed the button in time, why didn't that hit? That doesn't happen in the NES game. The hitboxes are so much more sharp, whereas this one, it just felt a bit more loose, whereas, it's still very good, but it's missing that level of polish that the NES game has.
I will agree that I don't think it is as polished. I think this one's a ton of fun to play. I really do. I think controlling Ryu in this is a lot of fun. I do think there are some interesting like platforming mechanics with the wall jump where like certain platforms you have to like purposefully fall down a hole to then wall jump over. And I think there's some really cool bits in this game.
I would agree that there are some really...
I would ultimately argue that cool the NES game is better.
I don't even think that's the question. This one isn't even close, but it is an interesting alternate take on it. And I have to wonder why Ninja Gaiden is the way that it is, right? When you think about the classic series of Ninja Gaiden games, you have, like you said, there was Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3 for NES, but there's also the original Ninja Gaiden arcade game, which is nothing like any of the rest of them. Then you have Ninja Gaiden Master System, Ninja Gaiden Game Gear. Again, those two games are completely different. The Link's game is just a port of Ancient Ship of Doom for NES. That's not a unique Ninja Gaiden game. But then you have Ninja Gaiden Shadow, which is, if I'm not mistaken, a reskinned version of Shadow of the Ninja that was reskinned to be a Ninja Gaiden game for its North American release. The Game Boy version of Shadow of the Ninja. Even though Shadow of the Ninja did have an NES release in North America. It's nonsense.
Yeah. It's weird.
I have to wonder why this series has so many different iterations of itself. We're like knocking on the door of Wonder Boy territory over here. And I also have to wonder why this hasn't been collected into some sort of compilation, because it would be really, really cool to have all the classic Ninja Gaidens in one place.
I agree. Yeah, that would be awesome.
And like, I feel like, am I even missing any of Ninja Gaiden
I don't think so.
games?
Link's Game Gear, the NES, the Master System.
All right, arcade, NES 1, NES 2. Ninja Gaiden 1 was released on Link's. And I think that's a port of the arcade game, which is insane to me. Then 3 for NES, Ninja Gaiden Game Gear, Ninja Gaiden Shadow, Ninja Gaiden Master System, Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. Where's Ninja Gaiden 3? Because Ninja Gaiden 3 was also was on Link's, but that was a port of the NES game. So the first Link's game was a port of the arcade game. The second Link's game was a port of the third NES game. And then you have Ninja Gaiden Trilogy on Super Nintendo, which is a fucking dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And then everything since then has been the new Ninja Gaiden from 2004 and beyond. But yeah, everything before that, all these older ones, getting all those collected together, I think would be absolutely amazing. I would love to see that.
I agree. I think this game's really awesome. Like overall,
I'm really glad I played it.
I think this is a really, really solid game. I think it's really, really fun. I think it is definitely a worthy game in the Ninja Gaiden franchise, and I definitely think people should check it out.
I definitely agree. Hard agree with you there. It's if you really like the NES games, this is super worth checking out because of just how different it is, but also similar. And it just shows a really interesting evolutionary path in the Ninja Gaiden games.
Yeah.
Whereas the Game Gear one, like, this still freaks me out to this day that it's just called Ninja Gaiden on Game Gear, but it's not even similar. It is a completely different game with different mechanics. The way he swings his sword in the Game Gear game is like super strange. Like he lunges forward a whole bunch.
Yeah.
That was also really funny. You start the game and like the ninjas are there being like, everybody else died. What are you going to do? And then you start the forest level and it's like the same green ninja that was in the cutscene that supposedly killed your whole clan. And he's just walking forward. He does nothing. Like, what are you doing, game? Come on. And like, but the bosses were kind of interesting. Like what was it? The second boss that would lunge at you with his sword. Like the sumo was fine, but like the second boss would lunge at you. I can't remember what the third boss was, but it was the third boss was like the boss, right? He was just a dude in a chair. You have to keep hitting him while just this legion of enemies would attack you from all sides.
Yeah,
it has a lot of really cool ideas in it. I do wish I had looked at an instruction manual so I could learn a bit more about the weapons. Things that would be established in later NES games were in this one, like the art of the fire wheel. No, not the fire wheel, because the art of the fire wheel is the one that you throw. The one that makes you temporarily invincible. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you were able to use it as an individual item, and in this one, you can also use it as an individual item, which came in handy. But then, like, you get to the second level, and it's like, midgets with guns jumping at you, like dudes in suits. What the hell is going on here? How is that more weird to me than the enemies in the original NES Ninja Gaiden?
I don't know.
Those things are weird. It's like dude in a Jason mask throwing machetes at you. Like, why? Why is any of this happening?
Why is this happening?
What is this weird little troll thing jumping up and down at me? Why is there a dog in a sweater running at me? Like, why do all the signs say Coca-Cola on them? This is freaking weird. Everything about this is weird, but I love it. I love Ninja Gaiden. I really wish they would collect all the old Ninja Gaiden. I would love that very, very much.
Me too. All right.
Well, I think that wraps it up for us. I think that about does it. For O, well, my original thought was I think we should play Orb 3D for NES because I own it and I have never played it and I don't know what it is. But then I looked into what the game was for about 5 seconds and I said, you know what? That would make for a terrible show, and also the music is incredibly grating, so absolutely not. Instead, what we are going to play is a game that I believe is the game I know about from Ferg. It is called On the Ball. It's a super, much like Ninja Gaiden. Actually, no, this was released in North America, but very limited quantities, I believe, because I had never heard of it until way, way later. This is similar to that Koro Rinpa game that was released on Wii, but it's on Super Nintendo.
Okay.
It's like a marble maze type of game. It's very interesting looking, and I've been meaning to try it because Ferg has spoken very highly of the game for a long time. So now I'm going to try it, and so are you, because you have no choice.
All right. I'm looking at it right now. Okay. On the Ball it is.
On the Ball for Super NES will be our O pick for next month. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for our show. Join us next time for the July 10, 20, 30, 40, where I am going to try a little something new to hopefully streamline the process a bit and make it so that I'm not just reading lists and falling asleep on the show. We're on most social media platforms. And if you want to get in touch with us, we aren't very difficult to find. All it takes a quick look at our show notes, and you'll see links to our social media accounts, as well as all manner of other fun stuff, like a link to our namesake, StoneAgeGamer.com, and more useful links than you can shake a joystick at. Again, I stole that from Ferg. I love it when he says that stuff. Oh my God! If you haven't listened to the most recent episode of the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast, Ferg did a huge Sifl and Ollie reference thing that had me dying laughing. It was amazing. I loved it, and I love him so much for doing it. Anyway, if you'd like to get early access to this show's episodes, as well as a bevy of other shows on the Geekade Podcast Network, check out our Patreon, also linked to in the show notes. It helps keep this show running week after week, and all our patrons are loved and appreciated. This show's theme song, Squared Roots, was written by Banjo Guy Ollie. You can learn all about his wonderful music and more by following the link to his YouTube channel, also in the show notes. And finally, as always, we'd like to thank our intrepid editor, Evan, for making the show listenable for all you folks, and we'd like to thank all you folks for listening in the first place. That is it, everybody. Thanks for listening. On behalf of Dan and myself, keep playing games.